Welcome to the Kent Lapp Podcast.
Hard left turn with your experience then in high-rise buildings. Have you, do you have some thoughts on, excuse the train in the background. We do have a morning train that rolls through here that gets a little noisy on the podcast.
I love the feel you got going.
Right?
This is really cool.
Yeah, it's very genuine in here.
Yeah.
We have our own train even, exactly. How do you explain the way the towers came down at 9/11? It may sound like a really weird question. So apparently there's a movement like 9/11 truthers, which I didn't really know much about, never paid much attention to. And then just more recently, it apparently is odd the way the towers came down. Do you have any thoughts on that, knowing commercial construction? And I don't know if you know anything about some of the questions there, but apparently a tower should not fall with the plane flying into it. And furthermore, if it would fall from the plane, it should not fall straight down as if it was like, what's the term when they like exploded on purpose? They bring down buildings with like these explosives. I forget
planned
what
demolition.
Planned demolition. The way those towers fell, and certainly Building 7, which wasn't even hit, they fell like it was a planned demolition, which is very weird. Do you know anything about that?
So I would purely be speculating based on my experience in the commercial world. I don't know specific, and I haven't done any research into it, but I can tell you that. So on your new construction builds where you've got, a cast-in-place concrete structure, and you also, from what I remember of those buildings, they also had steel construction as well in concert with the CIP, cast-in-place concrete structure. So with those steel elements, generally and typically, they have to be fireproofed. It's a spray insulation that goes on these different members. So in theory, again, this is pure speculation. I haven't really researched it, but in theory, a collision like that with jet fuel on fire could, the impact of the jet could scrape away a lot of that fire safing on impact. Then it makes the steel susceptible to that high temperature and melting. And then once one floor goes, that's when you get what looked like the pancake selective demolition approaches. One floor collapse at a structure, and that weight compounded, and then pancakes all the way down. I can see why there's interest there. It definitely, I remember watching that. I was going to freshman year econ at Georgia Southern. I remember watching it and I was so shocked that they actually collapsed. I thought it was just the top floors were just going to burn up and the structure stay in place. But I guess it proved that it is possible that weight of each individual floor, once the structural is compromised there and it comes crashing down, that it can't support that. Impact down from floors. But that's speculating.
Yeah, and that could very well be. I mean, I am the least expert here whatsoever. It's just from what I was reading, it's difficult to explain the way the towers fell, because just with the laws of physics and everything, like when you drop two rocks off a cliff and one rock drops straight into the lake below and the other rock bounces off the side a couple of times, the energy that gets absorbed from that rock bouncing off the side of the cliff wall, that uses some of the energy and it slows down the fall. I mean, it's just natural. I mean, even kids know this when they throw the rock. They don't know why exactly it happens, but that's just the way it is. And the towers fell at just like a split, like very, very close to the rate that they would fall if it was a free fall, which just does not make any sense at all, you know? So I don't know exactly like what the conspiracies are, if that's what it is, like behind it, or what some of the reasoning is of what would be the motives and who would have pre-rigged it, and I don't really know much about that. It's just the way the towers fell. I never paid much attention to, but as I looked into it, it was kind of hard to explain.
Yeah, it was definitely strange to see that. I personally, at the time, had no clue that they could collapse the way that they collapsed.
Yeah. Yeah. I know there's some that would say you're right that you had no clue they would collapse that way because buildings don't collapse that way and there's something else going on there. I know for sure there are certain people that would say that. I don't know what I think. I was just curious what your thoughts on how that came down.
Yeah.
I try not to get into the conspiracies too much, but there's plenty going around these days.
Oh man, I'm reading. I'm on a John Ronson kick right now, and I'm reading. I just finished up the psychopath test. Now I'm reading them. So
What's this? With John Ronson?
Yeah,
Who's that?
He's an investigative journalist, author.
Oh yeah?
And Tim Grohl actually recommended his book, The Psychopath Test, which was really interesting and so good that I'm a really slow reader.
Me too.
I take a lot of time and I make notes and highlight and then try and think about, and I'll reread pages over and over. That book, The Psychopath, I read in one day. Even Marissa, my wife, came in. She's like, "Are you done with that book?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like,
it's a couple 100-page book, or how?
It's close to 300, but I
Holy
finished it
cow.
up. I mean, I was that engaged with it. I mean, I started on Saturday morning and just by 6, 7 o'clock was wrapping it up. I was like,
I'll have to check it out. What's the premise of the book?
It's really so his overall, what he's trying to understand is the conspiracy theory that the world is ran by psychopaths. Basically, CEOs and world leaders and politicians have that gene or genetic makeup that's closely related to psychopaths. There's like this test, the psychopath test, that I can't remember who the founder was, Al somebody, but he created this test of like 30 questions and 20 traits to figure out how close you are, and the higher you score on it, the closer you are to being like a psychopath. Like the most extreme psychopaths on the planet scored like 29 or 30.
Okay.
We're up in that range, and he goes into not only examining, the serial killers, the people who have absolutely no empathy, but also the correlation between CEOs that just can go into a town and totally shut down a manufacturing plant and lay off 1,000 people.
Yes.
And laugh about how their stock price shot up.
Yes.
And how those traits are closely similar.
Ooh, I'm going to check that out.
Yeah, it was really, I really enjoyed it. And, what started this conversation is you talking about conspiracy theories, and that led me to his book he wrote back in 2003 called Them.
Okay.
And it's tracking, I'm only a couple chapters in, but it's tracking, you heard of the Bilderberg Group? I think Joe Rogan's talked about them a couple times.
I haven't. Bilderberg Group?
Yeah, supposedly. So the theory is that there's this group of people that are basically running the world. They're going around. They're creating the wars. They're starting wars. They're choosing. They're manipulating the world banks and. So, yeah.
Is it the deep state, or this is a different group?
I haven't gotten to where he's made that comparison right now. In the first few chapters, it's really just he's sort of tracking them. He's finding all these conspiracy theorists and trying to figure out where they're getting their sources from, why they came up with these wild conspiracies.
I see.
Where's their evidence? So he's compiling it now to lead us to that.
Yeah, interesting. I'm probably going to get both of those books. They sound very fascinating.
Yeah.